Yo, we finna do something a little different, y'all. It's your boy Tivo, man. It's finna get a little spooky. Let me go do something right quick. Hold on. Let's get it. So, one of my subscribers wanted me to post some scary stories, and I was like, what greater, person besides Darkness Prevail, of course, husband, all of them. So, I decided to do something different. Let's see. I think I'll do the GOAT, man.
Control of your clean is finally in your hands with the all-new iRobot Home app.
Today's stories are about the legendary GOATMAN. According to legend, the GOATMAN is half goat, half man, and used to be a human scientist who experimented on goats. A crazy story, yeah, but people have allegedly seen him. So I'll leave it up to you to decide what you believe.
Nah.
Enjoy these stories, and if you want your story in a future episode, send it to me at darkstories.org. I'd love to hear some stories about the dog man, being home alone, and being lost in the woods. Now, let's begin. The Lonely Man. From Carbon.
Shout out to Carbon.
I live in Maryland. I've lived here my whole 25-year-old life. Back in high school, I was a part of my track and field team. Running was and still is one of the few things I'm good at. As you'll see from my story, though, running was what got me into this mess, and yet it also got me out of it, or at least away from it for the night. After high school, my parents let me move into their country rent property, under the condition that I either further my studies by attending college or remaining employed full-time. They even offered to let me take over payments for the house if I had the monthly income to do it, meaning I had the chance to make it my own home one day. I was lucky for this. Not too many kids out of high school had the opportunity to be homeowners out of the gate. I just needed to find a well-paying job. I wasn't really interested in going to college, honestly. I never really figured out what I wanted to do or be. So I thought I'd go to college one day when I was ready and had stable finances.
Okay.
My parents' rent house was located down a long dirt road through miles of pine and oak trees. It creeped out a lot of my friends.
One thing about these videos, you gotta mentally see it. You gotta have an imagination.
Friends that I had over. But I never really thought of the place as creepy at first. To me, it was really serene. Waking up for a morning jog and hearing nothing but birds and bugs, it really got me pumped for the day. And coming home at night for a brisk run after dark was almost better. Now, a week or so after moving in and keeping my tradition of running alive, I began to take notice that I wasn't so alone out there. I would do my runs along the dirt road, 2 miles in and 2 miles back, according to my Fitbit. The morning run was always solitary. I didn't seem to have a neighbor for miles, so I never saw any other walkers or cars passing by.
Okay.
But some nights were different. On occasion, on the way back home, I would sometimes pass by a man in a hood and a badly bent back.
Goodness.
He'd be walking along the opposite side of the road, going the other way. The first few times I passed him, I would nod or wave, but I never received anything in response. I didn't mind. I took the hint. Some folks just don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
After about a week, I simply gave up the communication. Even so, I continued to keep an eye on him every time I saw him. Out there, almost alone, but always trying to keep myself occupied, it gave me something interesting to do. Observing him, trying to learn as much about him with the fleeting seconds I had with him those nights. I gathered some things about him. For one, he seemed to have a limp, and it almost seemed like it got worse every time I saw him.
Goodness.
Also, I believe he carried something under his cloak. I thought it was a walking stick or something, but I never saw or heard it hit the ground. About a month into living at the place, I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of screaming coming from the woods. For a moment, I assumed it was one of those weird waking dream things. But after I rubbed my eyes and looked around, I heard it again. I stood up and faced my window, peering out. It was coming from the direction of the dirt road, for sure. A woman's scream. I threw on my loafers and ran outside.
First of all, that's the bad thing to do. Well, why did you have to throw on loafers?
For a while there, I thought that would be the last of it. I didn't hear the sound again until I was reaching for the doorknob to head back inside. The moment I heard it from behind me, chills crept over my skin like freezing, biting ocean water.
Goodness.
I was very sure then it was a woman's scream. Grabbing my cell phone, I dialed the police and reported what I'd heard. Within the next couple of hours, a police cruiser drove down the dirt road and into my driveway slowly. An officer stepped out while another officer remained in the car. The one that approached me verified that I was the one who reported the sound.
Okay.
Then he let me know that they would drive up and down the road for a while in case they saw anything, but so far there was nothing out of the ordinary. I stayed a couple of hours, but the police didn't come by again. I was told by the operator earlier that the region did have the occasional bobcat, and reports of strange screams often ended up being bobcat cries. As I didn't know any better, I left it at that. Over the next month, I managed to land myself a job at a local but well-to-do tech shop. Because it was local, they didn't require a degree. They had me put together a computer, then solve a list of 20 different common problems with a different computer.
Goodness.
I passed, and they gave me the job with a guaranteed full-time position and $3 raise after 6 months.
Well, you can do that.
That meant I'd be 6 months away from taking over payments for the house.
Right.
I was incredibly excited, and it meant that I'd be able to quit the fast food job I'd been working. A few weeks later, everything seemed to be going well. My runs were as enjoyable as ever. Better money was already coming in, but to be honest, I was starting to feel a bit lonely out there. I'd been seeing the hooded man on the road as usual, still limping, still carrying something around underneath that old tattered cloak.
Goodness.
After the screaming incident, I did feel a bit wary of the man, but that had long since passed. In fact, I'd begun to feel more and more, well, sorry for the guy.
Oh, man.
If I was lonely after a couple of months out here, he must have been well beyond lonesome. And the way he limped worse and worse over the weeks, I figured at one point that maybe, since he was kind of a neighbor to me, I'd keep him company one night.
Big mistake.
Sure, he had never replied to me, but that was when I'd had headphones in, and I was moving at a quicker pace. One night, as I was jogging back from the 2-mile mark,
No.
I spotted his disheveled form approaching steadily in the distance.
If I had that Michael Jackson, y'all know that walk on You Rock My World, that little You Rock My World. Let me stop.
Full moon allowed me to see a bit further than usual. I slowed down to a walk and I caught my breath. I thought about what I was going to say. Just as he was stumbling past, I breathed in and spoke to him. Hey there.
Yeah.
Would you mind some company?
That's where you messed up.
For the first time since the first night I saw him, he reacted. The man stopped in his tracks. I turned to face him and approached his closest side. He began to walk again, and I walked next to him. I noticed his breathing was deep and slow, even a bit hoarse. More than ever, I was wondering why the guy so frequently took walks out here, what with a limp and trouble breathing and all that. So I see you around here from time to time on my runs. I tried to start a conversation. Do you, live nearby? I'm new around here myself. I actually didn't think I had any neighbors. Suddenly, I heard his limping gait stop. I looked over at him. He seemed to have stopped breathing. Then I heard a metallic clang on the rocks below him. Looking down, something smooth and silvery had hit the ground. It looked like an axe head. I swallowed hard and tried not to freak out. He was probably out here chopping wood, I guessed.
Yeah, okay.
Then something happened that I didn't expect. The man sighed, standing up to his full height. I personally stand at just about 6 feet tall,
It would have been time to go. You hear me?
so I was surprised when he stood to my height. But my breathing stopped too, as he continued to stand to a taller and taller height. That bent back of his straightened entirely, and the cloak that had nearly dragged the ground before was now at waist height.
Oh, nah.
Legs that should have belonged to an old man were instead backwards bent limbs ending in something that wasn't feet. At his side, in his massive hand, was certainly a wood-cutting axe, sheening in the light of the full moon.
Hey.
I didn't notice that I had fallen onto my butt, staring up at this neighbor of mine.
Oh, nah.
His hood had dipped backward a bit, and a forward-facing snout poked through the dark.
Oh, no.
I could see it grinding its teeth, each of them thick and ivory and square. These features reminded me of a goat more than anything else.
Oh, nah.
It stood still,
Nope.
a mist forming in front of its mouth as it breathed. It stood still, a mist forming in front of its mouth as it breathed perfectly well and silently, as if it was waiting for me to react now. And after finding my sanity, I pulled myself off the ground and ran faster than I ever had before.
I bet you did.
I had another 1.5 miles to go or so, and I ran the full way, only stopping when I was able to collapse on my own couch. After that experience, I ran only in the morning, and only after a week without running at all, terrified that I would see the hooded figure.
Hey, boy, look. Boy, when I tell you what I would have did? I would have went a whole 2 months to a whole year without running again. They would have been like, Jay, you gaining weight. Look, if you only knew my story.
Again, without running at all, terrified that I would see the hooded figure again. I would hear more screaming the odd day of the months as they went on,
Oh, nah.
and eventually I was able to have the house's loan signed over to me. The moment
I would have said, Mama, Dad, you can keep this house.
should have been happy, but I couldn't help but feel as if I had trapped myself in my new forested hell
Oh,
with
nah.
something that isn't human.
Oh, nah.
To this day, I pray that I don't see another cloaked figure on that dirt road.
Put it in reverse. What's that mean? Put it in reverse. Would have been time to go. So that's the first one. I don't know if I'm going to do all 4 of them. Like, subscribe, hit that bell. Comment if y'all want me to keep going with these. This is my first time doing it. I'm gone.